Hello my dears, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is an interesting one. So this video is going to be a response to the response made to me by Noah Samson. So some interesting things have transpired over the last couple of days. I have had Noah's fans come over to my channel and insult me, as well as one calling me a Nazi, which was interesting. Anyways, I thought it'd be interesting for us to take a look at Noah's video to kind of understand why this has happened. So the video that Noah is responding to in his response to me is my Little Mermaid video. So let's begin.
So in this video, Patience raises a number of points in support of her main thesis, that the backlash over Halle Bailey's casting as Ariel in the live-action Little Mermaid is, for the most part, justified. It's not motivated by racism, but by a number of valid reasons, which she goes on to outline.
There are some people who believe that simply providing an explanation for something automatically means that you are justifying it, which is false. Just because I simply provide other explanations as to why people are upset with the race swap does not automatically mean that I'm justifying it.
Her conclusion, which is framed as a compromise of sorts, is that we need more standalone non-white stories instead of recasting white roles with non-white actors. Throughout this video, Patience describes how this controversy over race swapping is not getting the nuance it deserves. She laments the way that the mainstream discourse surrounding it is driven by those who are labeling everyone that disagrees as racist. One question that I think is important we ask here, though, is this what's really going on? And if it is, who is saying this? Who is labeling everyone as racist?
That would be you, Noah, and also people who think like you, because later on in your video, you say this.
The backlash to Bailey's casting is not being driven by the sentimental Ariel fandom. It's being driven by, well, racist internet trolls.
So I guess you've answered your own question.
One of the most widely criticized examples of the sort of racism here was when a Twitter account used artificial intelligence to make Halle Bailey white. They CGI whitewashed a clip from the trailer. Many celebrated the work, hyping up the possibility of this being done to the entire film. Truly wild stuff. The tweet reads, "Credits to our artificial intelligence scientist, 10 gazillion IQ. He fixed The Little Mermaid and turned the woke actor into a ginger white girl." Woke there is being used as a stand-in for black, which is a fairly common thing among the reactionary crowd. You know, if you're white, you're just white, but if you're not white, you're political, you're woke.
Is that an American thing? Because when he said this, I was really confused, because he's basically essentially saying that woke means black, as if to say that woke is a synonym for black. And as far as I'm aware, that has never been the case. Even when the term woke does originate from Black Americans, because they used to use it to describe a state of mind. So if you were woke, it meant that you were aware of injustices. Like it's almost as if like your third eye opened, if you will. Like you could see the unseen. In modern time, it's kind of moved on to mean a variety of different things, not just issues pertaining to black people and racial topics. But I have never ever known the word woke to ever be a synonym for black. So I have to ask my American audience, is that an American thing, or is that just a Noah thing? Because where is that coming from?
If an audience member is willing to take Patience at her word, willing to accept the assumption without evidence that the mainstream media is calling everyone racist, willing to believe that no racism is actually occurring, that everyone objecting to the casting is doing so for totally valid reasons, then it's possible that they already have some form of conservative bias or anti-woke disposition. That content will help them develop this conservative anti-woke disposition.
This is the first time that Noah reveals his true intention with this video, when he starts to mention things like conservatism and how he dislikes people who have anti-woke rhetoric. Because I truly believe this video has nothing to do with Ariel and nothing to do with black representation. I think that what Noah truly cares about is politics.
If an audience member is willing to take Patience at her word, willing to accept the assumption without evidence that the mainstream media is calling everyone racist.
Without evidence, you know, that's the key point to remember there. There's no evidence, even though I do show Trevor Noah at the beginning of my video saying that everyone who has an issue with it is racist. Not only that, everyone who has a smartphone and has social media would have seen the discourse that was happening around The Little Mermaid. And they know that the vast majority of people were saying that people were angry because they were racist. I don't understand why Noah's trying to gaslight me here and trying to say that that didn't happen. So none of you saw the people saying that the people who hate this race swap are racist. None of you saw that? Because according to Noah, that didn't happen. And Noah, I would appreciate it if you would make up your mind, because in one breath you're saying that no one is accusing those who are outraged by this race swap of being racist, but yet simultaneously, remember, you said this?
The backlash to Bailey's casting is not being driven by the sentimental Ariel fandom. It's being driven by, well, racist internet trolls. I see a lot of myself in this video. In the past, I've made content that has relied on certain assumptions. Assumptions formed through my own bias towards leftist politics. Once things enter the political realm, as I feel that they have in this video, with it being a discussion of race and ethics and media, I feel like this kind of stuff is important.
See, the thing is, Noah, you say that you see yourself in this because you used to have biases and you used to make assumptions, but you haven't remotely changed, because that's exactly what you've done within this video. You've assumed that my video was political when it had absolutely no political intent whatsoever. I was simply a black woman talking about black representation and my issues that I have with the way that Hollywood chooses to go about it. I also decided to provide other explanations as to why people were having issues with this race swap, because there was a lot of animosity and a lot of divisions and polarization because of this, and I felt as though it would be good to also provide people a different perspective as to why people might be upset with this race swap. You are viewing my video with assumptions based on your biased American political lens. Race is a lot more of a political subject for you guys in America. Yes, race pops up in some of our political discussions, but we are nowhere near as political around the topic of race as Americans are, because in America, race is so political to the point where your politicians feel comfortable to say things like this.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
My video on Ariel and the race swap was not political, but you have interpreted it as political because of your own cultural differences and your own political biases.
The video is whitewashing not just a character, but a real human being, the actor playing the character, making a real black human being white, and then saying that by doing this, you're fixing them is racist. Yes, that is a racist thing to do. Sorry to break it to you this way, but don't know what else to call it, you know? So to return to this idea of bias, does Patience engage with any of these examples of racism in her video? No, she doesn't.
That I can give him. I do think that's a valid criticism. I definitely did not spend enough time, or any time to be honest, really addressing the racism backlash that had also occurred. And there is a part where I misspeak within the video and say that this is not happening because of racism, when I meant to say this is not only happening because of racism. I do have a bit more faith in humanity, and I don't believe that that was the majority of people who were angry about this race swap. I think there were a variety of other reasons for why people were upset with it, which is why I made the video addressing all of those other reasons. But yes, I do acknowledge that some of the people who were upset with it were being racist, and maybe were upset with it because of racism. That's a valid point, and that's a valid criticism, and I do take that criticism because I think that's valid.
Patience speaks to the notion that this casting decision is erasing redhead representation. But disgruntled redheads aren't the ones driving this backlash. Conservative influencers are.
There we go again, mentioning the conservatives. Keep a count. I'm not going to allow people to not notice it. Pay attention to how many times he mentions conservatives and right-wing people in this video. As I said, my video was not intended to be political. And as I am the creator of the video, I know what my intentions were. And my video doesn't suddenly become political just because an American tells me it is. So Noah makes references to conservative commentators who have also referenced the race swap or have referenced the red hair issue. Personally, I was not aware of that. The first time I was made aware of the weird thing that was happening between black representation and redheads was from Young Ripper 59, who has made several videos on this topic. And another thing I really respect about Young Ripper 59 is that he doesn't just complain about how much he dislikes race swaps, he also does something about it. You know, he creates original black stories in comic books to give the black representation that people deserve to have through original stories. But of course, Noah has to drive home the point that the redhead erasure points are being pushed by conservative commentators, because of course, Noah's purpose of this video is political. He disagrees with me, and he doesn't like the fact that some of my views align with conservatives, because he finds that to be very, very problematic. Because he says within his own video, I'm growing very rapidly, and in the process, I'm going to grow a larger audience of people who will be able to hear my views. And that is concerning to him.
Patience has a smaller channel compared to mine. She's currently sitting around 70,000 subscribers at the time of writing. I don't think that will be the case for long. For one thing, her videos are consistently overperforming relative to her subscriber count. The video we're looking at today has almost 800,000 views, so the ideas presented here are getting traction. Mainly though, just a few weeks ago, she posted her 10,000 subscriber Q&A, and again, she's currently at 70. If she continues on this growth path, which I believe she will, she'll be a very large channel relatively soon.
Now, the next point that Noah makes, I'm not gonna lie to you, I have no idea what he's talking about. Like, none. I have no idea. I have watched it so many times trying to decipher what the hell he's talking about, and I've got nothing. So to give you a bit of context, because I will be cutting out all the parts where I'm speaking, because you've all watched my video, so you know what I said. But to give you some context, he's responding to the part where I say in my video that what Hollywood is doing with these race swaps is lazy pandering to a black audience. And so this is his response to me making that statement.
Performative pandering doesn't really work if you make your characters Aryan. If anything, the racist people we looked at earlier would love that. They used artificial intelligence to fix a real black actor by making her white. So like, why stop at the skin? Make her blonde, make her eyes blue while you're at it. Tattoo a swastika onto the frog.
So, anyone know what he's talking about? Anyone? Yes? No? Anyone? Because I have no idea what he's talking about. He's talking about an Aryan race, SWAT stickers, blue eyes. No idea what he's talking about. I had to have my sister listen to this point because I thought maybe I was the one that was slow. So I had her listen to it. It was hilarious. I was like, babe, please can you listen to this and try and tell me if you can understand what the hell he's talking about. So she puts my headphones on, right? And she listens to him make his point. And then she just goes, And so that gave me enthusiasm, right? Because I was like, okay, maybe she understands it, because if she understands it, then I'll be able to respond to it. And so I go to her, okay, so any idea what he's talking about? And she just goes, nope. she goes, all I got was, why not Nazi? And then she goes, I think he's just throwing words and buzzwords and hoping that his audience doesn't realize that it doesn't make any sense. And at this point, I have to agree with her because I have no idea what he's talking about. But what I do know is that it has absolutely zero relevance to my video or anything that I said. He put a SWAT sticker on Sebastian, which I personally found to be highly disrespectful, okay? We stan Sebastian on this channel. That was very rude. Also, he calls Sebastian a frog. Sebastian is a crab, Noah. Don't misspecies him. But at the same time, at least we get some insight into what may have influenced some of his subscribers to come over to my page and call me a Nazi. Like, at least now we know where that reference came from.
The hair isn't the problem. The problem is race. It's the perceived threat against the preservation of whiteness. And what I find especially odd here is this insinuation that redhead representation is somehow more important than black representation. And no, Patience doesn't ever say this outright, and I don't think she'd necessarily agree with it on its own. However, is that not the implication here?
So a straw man has now entered the chat. So this is the part of the video where Noah accuses me of saying or implying that redhead representation is more important than black representation, which is very odd considering in my video I clearly said that we should keep the redhead representation that redheads already have and just simply create new black representation through original stories rather than race swapping. So if I'm saying keep the redhead representation that exists and create new representation for black people, surely that would imply that I think they're both important. I don't place one as being more important than the other because I'm advocating for us to have both. But like I said in a previous video, these all-inclusive types, they don't actually want inclusivity because they rarely want things added, more so asking for things to be taken away and replaced.
Redheads make up 1 to 2% of the population, less than 1/10 of the Black American population. Statistically speaking, they've actually been overrepresented in much of the media over the years. And if we contrast that with the historical underrepresentation of black people in Hollywood roles by way of racist exclusion, the countless examples of Hollywood's whitewashing of non-white characters, and blackface, of course, there's that. Justifying the backlash here in the name of representation doesn't make any sense.
The only point in Noah's video that was valid was me not acknowledging the racism aspect a bit more. Everything else past this point is just downhill, to be honest. Noah just starts making up his own arguments and arguing against his own arguments. At this point, I don't even know if we're even talking about my video anymore. This whole entire point that he's just made is based on the premise that I believe that redhead representation is more important than black representation, which are not views that I hold, nor are they views that I expressed in my videos. That is a view that Noah literally made up, and now he's counteracting his own point that he just created. And I also find it bizarre how Noah basically says that the fact that black Americans have been underrepresented in the media is the reason why these race swaps are good. It's very bizarre to me, because if you wanted to make the argument that black Americans have been historically underrepresented represented within the media and that they should have more representation, I think that's a fair argument to make. But my question is, how does that justify race swaps? Why is that a justification for race swaps? It's almost as if in Noah's worldview, the only form of representation that black people can have is through race swaps, because the concept of simply giving black people their own original stories for some reason just doesn't seem to make sense to him.
For the young redheads who saw themselves in the 1989 Ariel, Bailey has red hair too. Can they not see themselves represented in this new Ariel? Or does she need to be white for that to happen? And if she does, that's like a great opportunity for us to look inward and try and understand what that is.
The argument that Noah's trying to build here is that I have a weird high value placed on whiteness, as if Ariel's whiteness is what's important here, which is false. What's important about Ariel looking the way she does is not because she's white, but simply because she's always looked like that. It's about simply keeping a character as they were in their original form. If Ariel was Asian and they were changing her into a different race, it would still be the same problem because you're taking her away from her original form.
The second major point that Patience raises in defense of the backlash over this casting is that of sentimentality. Humans are sentimental creatures, she says, and we don't appreciate it when our art and characters are changed to be different from how we remember them. And sure, these are all things that happen, right? Fandom backlash is fairly common, and the examples she gives are indicative of the types of attachments that we form to the characters that we enjoy. However, I feel like these examples don't really track here. For one thing, similarly to the redhead erasure point,
you would think from watching Noah's video that my entire video was just about redhead erasure, when that was only 2 minutes out of the entire 15-minute long video that I actually created. The parts that I spent the most time talking about, he addresses within 10 seconds. Like, he's very hyper-focused on that redhead point for some reason. For some reason, Noah decided to make that one of the centerpieces in his 30-minute long video about me.
The backlash to Bailey's casting is not being driven by the sentimental Ariel fandom. It's being driven by, well, racist internet trolls. And who is saying this? Who is labeling everyone as racist? It's being driven by, well, racist internet trolls and amplified by conservative influencer.
Back to the conservatives again. Noah loves to talk about those conservatives. And yeah, now he's simply painting it as if the only people who have an issue with this were conservatives, completely dismissing the countless black content creators who also expressed having an issue with this. In Noah's video, he provides one example of a black content creator who agrees with his views. And what I find interesting about that, Noah, is whilst you were searching for black content creators who agree with you, you really mean to tell me that when you were searching for black people's opinions on race swaps, you didn't happen to come across these videos as well?
When they want to do live action depictions of classically, let's say, white characters, just as an example, being changed to black characters, right? It's a list of them, certainly that popped up in recent years. What they are saying is that there's this list of black characters that exists. Instead of expanding on them, doing live action depictions of them, we would instead like to change a classically white character and give you the sloppy seconds. And instead of giving, not necessarily giving you, the characters half the time already exist. Instead of basing material off of those characters that are historically black, classically black, and that already exist, instead we'll race change the white ones. And that shit is insulting, right? They have said that fuck your characters that already exist. You don't deserve to get years put in the grinder, right? Years of building, character building, expansion. Instead of doing that, we'll just give you a hand-me-down, right?
It's troublesome to me that we have yet again another race swap that seems, at least at this point, utterly unnecessary. There's military might displayed through expansion and conquest, scientific exploration, political intrigue, court antics, and family drama ready-made for film or television. But we know the reality is that for many in Hollywood especially, they aren't going to dive into history that deeply for originality or the unknown, despite most of us probably longing for anything that we haven't already seen. There is an entire world out there of legends and heroes that we're denied solely because studios don't want to invest.
Race swapping is stupid. I find it distasteful, disheartening, and downright insensitive in different aspects. You should be happy, grateful, elated that you have any representation. It's either this or nothing. No, I prefer nothing. We have been put in a subservient position, as has always been the norm. It has just changed, in the way that we are given the table scraps. We are essentially being treated as the proverbial dog begging its owner. Can I have some human food, please? Except human food in this scenario would be, can I have a character, please? Oh yes, Black Superman looks delish. You want to know why Black Panther was so successful? Because from his very inception, he was a black man in Africa who was in charge of a kingdom, a people. And along with that major responsibility, he was a superhero. He was not White Panther before, and they turned him into Black Panther. He has always been such. These race swap characters are hand-me-downs. They were not created with the intent, purpose for us. They were asides. They were afterthoughts. Very profitable afterthoughts. Because simply coloring someone a different skin tone will generate you black dollars. This is what you want at the end of the day.
We are sick and tired of race swaps. We want original stories. And Noah here is simply saying that, well, tough shit. It's so interesting because this is the same camp that says things like, we need to uplift black women's voices. And then the black woman comes and talks about representation and Noah says, shut up. Take what you're given. I don't feel very uplifted, Noah.
But from here, it seems that this appeal to sentimentality is being utilized by these trolls and right-wing culture war manufacturers. So Patience's conclusion in this video is that instead of race swapping these characters, we need more black stories. Stop the pandering remakes and make new, good, non-white centered stories instead. This is by far the best reason one could give for disagreeing with Bailey's casting. It's the most popular reason, found in plenty of other YouTube videos and many comment sections. And it's also, I think, profoundly unconvincing.
When I tell you, when I first watched that part, I died.
Profoundly unconvincing.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Noah. I didn't realize that I had to convince you about my feelings about my representation. The superiority complex is wild. Like, Noah, who gave you the authority to tell me how I should feel about my representation? And who told you that you have the authority to decide whether or not you're convinced about my feelings about my representation? Why do I need to convince you? Why do you need to be convinced about how I feel about black representation? It's just, I can't wrap my head around it. It's like, imagine going to your friend and being like, you know that thing you said to me the other day, it actually kind of hurt my feelings. And then they turn around and go, unconvinced. Noah, I think you might need to
look inward
to understand where you got your superiority complex from, where you think that sense of authority came from, that you think you have the right to tell a black woman how she feels about black female representation. Where does that sense of authority come from, Noah? I think you might need to look inward.
While I completely agree that we do need more stories like this conclusion represents a false dichotomy. They're saying that instead of Black Ariel, we need more black stories, but the obvious question in response to that is, why not both?
Well, the obvious answer to that, Noah, is that many black people don't want race swaps. We just want the original stories. We don't see the need for the race swaps. Race swaps just cause to divisions, polarizations, and angry people. They lead to people like Halle Bailey receiving loads of disgusting comments and disgusting messages from people who are angry about the race swap, which is completely unnecessary and would have been completely avoided had Disney just simply done an original story. Because the thing is, when you race swap, you piss people off and people retaliate in disgusting ways. And as someone who's spoken so much about racism, I imagine that you care about racism. So I can't imagine why you would support a practice that encourages people to become angry and retaliate in racist ways.
Not even Patience necessarily, right? But any of these media people, the primary sources of this backlash. Are we really supposed to believe that they care about black stories? I think, and maybe this is just a hot take, but I think they don't care. They don't care at all, not one bit. And the reason for that is, well, the only time they seem to talk about it is when the sanctity of white characters is being threatened by wokeness. Wokeness being, again, black people, black actors. That's what they mean when they say it.
And this whole idea that woke equals black, like, where did you get that from? Like, where did you learn that from? This is the thing, right? There's this like thing that people say often, that a lot of these white liberals who claim to care so much about black people don't actually have any black friends in real life. I struggle to believe Noah has any black friends in his real personal life, and he's still walking around thinking that the word woke means black. Like, I just don't I don't know if I'm buying that. Again, he's hyper-focusing on Ariel's whiteness, and it's very weird because, as I said, it's not about the fact that Ariel is white, it's about the fact that she's not in her original form and how she was when she started. We would be having this exact same conversation if they decided to race swap Mulan or Pocahontas or Tiana from Princess and the Frog. We would be having this exact same conversations because at the end of the day, most people who are against race swaps are against race swaps, period. The only reason we're able to have this conversation when it's a white character being race swapped is because only the white characters get race swapped. So inevitably, when they are the only ones getting race swapped, every conversation we have around race swapping is inevitably going to be about white characters.
What's really wild about this point to me is the assumption that the people celebrating more black representation in media, like Bailey playing Ariel, aren't also advocating for more standalone black stories. That there are droves of black people who want representation at the expense of new original stories.
I would love to see these original stories that Disney has on their hard drive. Considering the last time we saw a black Disney princess was in 2009, I would love to see these original stories. Disney's very busy with their race swaps, not very busy with the original stories though.
It is frustrating, right? Because clearly these desires, many of them genuine, have been taken advantage of in this backlash. They've been co-opted by people who definitely don't care about black stories and used as a thin mask to hide their racist dog whistling. And I just want more people to understand that that is what's going on. That is what you're propping up when you use this argument against the casting of a black actor.
So are we just supposed to just not talk about our issues? So if we have an issue with race swapping and stuff, we're supposed to just keep quiet, because in doing so, we prop up people who you don't like and who you disagree with, who happen to agree with us. So we should just shut up and not talk about our issues. This is the reason why I say on my channel that you should not become obsessed with these left-wing and right-wing labels, and why I say you should avoid echo chambers and you should expose yourself to different views. If you are a left-winger, you should expose yourself to right-wing views. If you are a right-winger, you should expose yourself to left-wing views for a number of reasons. The first reason is if you don't, you become like Noah. Noah is so far gone with his far-left ideologies that he now does not care about having actual conversations. All he cares about is winning. That is literally all he cares about. He has decided that the far left is his team, and that is who he wants to defend all the way to the end. Even though the stuff that I'm saying also echoes the sentiments of many black people who are sick and tired of having race swaps be our main form of representation, he is uninterested in that, because all this is to him is a game of politics. And I am just a piece on a chessboard, and I am not moving in the way that he wants me to move. And so that is why we have a problem. Because that is what many of us minorities are to these white liberals, is just pawns in their political game. In fact, Malcolm X even spoke about this decades ago.
In this crooked game of power politics here in America, the Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issue, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberals against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal, and white conservatives from both parties do likewise. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism, false promises of integration and civil rights. In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader, who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gains, token progress.
This is such a problem among a lot of white liberals that there's even memes about it. Aber and Preach have even spoken about it.
What you're saying to me is, I don't understand basically what's going on in this situation. That I just had this was a 45-minute conversation that we cut down. That in this 45-minute conversation, I have no idea what was happening and stuff like that, and I need to relook everything. That's basically.
Yeah, that is what he's saying. Because again, in his head, he knows better than everyone. He's convinced he knows better than everyone, even though he's not that bright when it comes to most social issues. And he has a condescending attitude to anybody who disagrees or doesn't share his take. I get why it bothers you. You're a young man. You're not used to this stuff. What I'm going to say to you is that get used to it. Get very, very used to it, because white liberals be like that. They're the only group I've ever seen talk to me this way. I'm not even joking. They're the only group I've ever had talk to me like that.
There are some white liberals who have some sense of superiority complex, right? They think that they can come to black people and explain to us our own racist experiences. They can educate us on all of the racism that happens to us that we don't see because we're too dumb to actually think for ourselves. So they need to come in and they need to help us see all of the things that they can see that we can't see. I am telling him that I don't think that race swaps are a good way to represent us and that original stories would be the best way to represent us. You would think that he'd be at least a little bit open to hearing that out properly and actually give that argument some actual thought rather than just simply saying it's unconvincing. But he doesn't, right? Because the honest truth is that he doesn't actually care how I feel. He doesn't care how black people feel about this race swap. He just cares about politics. In Noah's mind, I am a piece on a chessboard and I am not moving in the way that he wants me to move. I am stepping out of line, as one might say, and Noah is politely reminding me to get back in my place. Noah fails in his video to justify race swaps. He fails to tell me why they are necessary. His point of view is just simply, why not? But that's not good enough. You need to tell me why you think that these race swaps are necessary. Because I've told you why I don't like them, and I've told you why I disagree with them, and I've given you my points as to why I think they're unnecessary. But seeing as you think you have more authority than I do to speak on this matter, I would really like you to tell me why you think these race swaps are so necessary. And also, simply black people telling you that they don't want race swaps should be enough for you to consider the fact that maybe we shouldn't have them. But of course, your opinion matters more than mine, Noah. You know best. All-knowing white liberal, you are the messiah.
I do think that this video serves to normalize white supremacist rhetoric in a way that might not be intended. The most visible function is to validate racism, to validate those who want to protect whiteness as an identity, to defend the cultural hegemony of white supremacy. But okay, my fear here is that videos like this open up the possibility, not just ideologically, but algorithmically, that people may be swayed into far-right thinking by starting with this seemingly innocuous interpretation of an anti-black controversy. Upon hearing this take from a creator who is co-opting the aesthetics of nuance without actually functionally providing that nuance, viewers may be pushed into anti-woke and eventually far-right echo chambers without realizing it until it's too late. If your content leans anti-woke, it's only a matter of time before YouTube plugs you in with some of the channels that we looked at today.
And now we get into the nooks and crannies of the real issue that Noah has with my video. He doesn't give a crap about how black people feel about black representation. His issue with me and my channel is that some of my views do align with conservative views, and because I am very moderate in my views and very moderate in a lot of my stances, my channel has attracted a combination audience. Some of my viewers are conservative, some of my viewers are left-wing. I think his biggest concern is that the left-wing part of my audience are going to suddenly be exposed to the most dangerous thing of all, which is a different perspective. God forbid people on the left explore some of the viewpoints that exist on the right, because that is scary. Because as much as Noah ironically challenges me on my points about echo chambers, I actually genuinely don't believe in echo chambers. Noah quite clearly does believe in echo chambers, because he's essentially at this point fear-mongering to his audience about the dangers of them potentially being taken on the path of discovering alternative perspectives and alternative views. I actively encourage my audience, and I will always continue to encourage my audience to seek out perspectives from other content creators who think differently to themselves. As I said earlier in my video, I think those on the left should also explore the perspectives of those on the right. Those on the right should also explore the perspectives of those on the left, because in doing so, it will expand your mind and it will also humanize the people who think differently to you, rather than paint them as these scary, terrifying, evil beings like Noah does. Noah has thrown out so many buzzwords in this video. He's thrown out Nazi, he's thrown out Aryan race, he's thrown out white supremacists, he's thrown out far-right extremists. Funnily enough as well, within his video, one of the examples that he presents of far-right-wing extremists that he thinks that my content is a gateway to is Aberrant Preach.
If your content leans anti-woke, it's only a matter of time before YouTube plugs you in with some of the channels that we looked at today.
Aberrant Preach are one of the examples of the far right-wing extremist commentators that he thinks that my content is a gateway to. Aberrant Preach have regularly said on their channel that they identify as being on the left. Granted, they're very moderate. They're a lot more closer to the center. They're very moderate. Center left, I guess, is where they would probably align themselves. But to call them far right-wing extremists is wild. And it very much does give a lot of insight into how far left Noah is in his own politics, if he views people who lean towards his side as far right extremists. I just think the projection here is just fascinating to watch, because he's accusing me of starting my own echo chamber when I actively encourage my audience to explore different perspectives. The best way for you to prevent yourself being in an echo chamber is to explore different perspectives, whereas he fearmongers his audience and tells them to not watch content like mine because they might descend into the possibility of exploring a different opinion. That is how you create echo chambers. That is exactly how they happen, when you essentially tell your audience to not listen to people who think differently to you, when you tell your audience to avoid perspectives that differ from yours. You, Noah, are creating echo chambers, and the irony is that your own audience doesn't even see that. They are praising you for this video, and they're coming over to my video and attacking me and accusing me of having echo chambers. Another reason why I would never tell my audience who they should watch and who they shouldn't watch is because, first of all, I am not your mom. I don't get to censor your content for you. I have enough faith in the intelligence of my viewers that they have the ability to explore a variety of different views and decide for themselves what information is worth taking in and what information is worth leaving behind. I don't doubt the fact that they have the ability to do that. And I do think that as an adult, that is a very important ability that you need to develop. The ability to not be a passive consumer of information, to be able to look at different things and explore different ideas and explore different pieces of information and different perspectives, and in the process make up your own mind on how you feel about it, rather than simply being told how to feel about it. Listen to different perspectives, seek out different information, and make up your own mind as an individual how you feel about it. Don't just make up your mind on how you feel about something just because your political team has that opinion. Don't decide your opinions based on what your political team tells you to think. Be a free thinker, and that is what I encourage on my channel, which is the complete opposite of what Noah encourages on his, and it's very unfortunate. Problem with politics is that it does encourage our tribalism to come out. It makes us very tribalistic. People start descending themselves into different teams. I am left wing, I am right wing. You shut yourself off from people who have a different perspective to you. You shut yourself off from people who think differently to you, and in the process you stunt your growth and your development as a person, because when you open your mind and you explore different views, you just generally, one, become smarter because you just know more information, but also two, you realize that the people on the other side who you've demonized like Noah has are just human beings too. They just view the world slightly different to you, but that doesn't make them evil.
And I don't know, it worries me a little bit, because this ecosystem of content, it thrives on the death of nuance.
No, Noah, your political views rely on the death of nuance. They rely on people not seeking out different perspectives and different information. The fact that you seem to feel the need to shelter your audience from alternative perspectives, and the fact that you seem to feel the need to shelter your audience from discovering different pieces of information kind of implies that your position relies on ignorance. It relies on your audience not knowing anything else outside of what you tell them. It relies on them not exploring other perspectives and not exploring other viewpoints on issues. If your views are so coherent and your views are so strong and you're so confident in your views, you should be very confident to allow your audiences to go and explore different perspectives and different opinions on issues with the confidence of knowing that they won't necessarily change their views. But if your views rely on no nuance because you don't encourage them to seek out different perspectives, then that kind of shows that you don't actually think they hold up on their own. If you have to police what your audience views and you have to tell them what to avoid and what not to avoid, then quite clearly they're quite flimsy. Because if all it takes is one of your viewers to watch a video like mine or watch a video like Aberrant Preach to completely change their mind, then those views can't be that strong on their own, then can they? So this has been quite a long video. My conclusion on this is that in the same way that Noah thinks my nuance is artificial, I think that his kindness is artificial. As much as many of his viewers think that this was him just being kind and, saying things in good faith, what this really was Noah is politely signaling to me that I need to get back in my place because I can't have the views that I have. I can't think for myself. I can't have my own perspectives. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. I'm allowed to, provided they align with his. If my own views and my own perspectives aligned with his, this video would have not been made. Quite point blank, simply, it would not have been made. He's very much given me the energy of Blackie, get back in your place. It's funny because my sister's dead convinced that Noah's racist, and the reason why she thinks this is because he's essentially telling black people how they should and shouldn't feel about their own representation. What are the odds that Noah now makes a video with one of his black friends to prove that he's not racist? If he does that, that would be both hilarious and predictable. And although I don't agree that Noah is necessarily racist, I don't fully personally buy that, I do have to admit that she does have a point though. He's trying to tell me how I should think and how I should feel about an issue that does not affect him. And it is very much giving white savior complex, and I don't really like it. He's swooping in like a good white savior, here to explain to me my racist experiences and to tell me how I should handle issues pertaining to my own representation. But the point is, Noah, I've got your message and I understand exactly what you're saying. The problem is though, I am a free thinker and I will continue to be a free thinker, and I will continue to express my views and express my perspectives and explain to my audience how I came to those perspectives and how I came to those views. If you disagree with them, that's just very unfortunate, isn't it?
There are many whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox, and a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to, but the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling and you take him for a friend.